The Connection Show, inspiring hope, health, and healing. Sponsored by Braveheart Workshops Live with Jill Reynolds. And joining me from the amazing state of Tennessee is Brent McCorkle. Welcome, Brent, to the show.
Thank you so much, Jill. It's great to be on with you.
Well, I am honored beyond because Jesus Revolution is a movie that is at the theaters now, and it is unbelievable. And so Brent is going to share a little bit about his life and share how he got involved with this amazing film. And you will be blessed by his story. Before we begin, I just want to share for one moment an event that's coming up in Branson, Missouri. It was inspired by God in the last week, and it's going to be August the 19th and 20th. I'm going to show you what it Esther, the play, is now appearing at the Sight and Sound Theater here in Branson, and people are flocking to Branson to see this amazing story of fearless, courageous Esther saving the Jewish nation. And so we're going to come together here in Branson and bless women with this event. And the coolest part that God's giving us, Brent, is that we want to be eunuchs to the homeless women, the drug addicts, and the domestic violence women's in Branson, and we want to shower them with a makeover like Esther did for a year, with oils and manicures and pedicures, and throw them a banquet and show them how much Jesus loves them. So please go to braveheartworkshops.com, and the event will be posted this weekend, and come to Branson and become a resilient brave heart. So that's enough of that. We don't want to waste one more minute. Brett, take us on a journey. I want to learn about little Brent as a toddler, and then grammar school, junior high, and high school, and how God has taken you into who the amazing man of God you are today.
Well, first of all, that Branson outreach sounds amazing. That's just really amazing what you're doing out there. That's so cool. I'm a pastor's kid. I was raised in the church. I was actually baptized when I was 5. And I was always an odd little creative kid. My mom would play records for me, little Christian records, and I loved Christian choir. I loved when the choir would sing at church. And I made the mistake that I think a lot of people still make today, is I just thought everybody was wired like me. I thought everybody was experiencing the world the exact same way as me, but I didn't realize I was an artist, So I grew up just thinking everybody, loved art and creativity as much as me, and everybody is creative, but not everybody wants to make their life about that, so I was a little bit adrift as a kid, but the one thing that happened to me growing up, and I was raised in a really loving family. I was raised in a house full of love. My brother and I have always felt loved upon. My mom comes from multi-generations of pastors, and my dad does not. My dad's father was actually killed in the coal mines. And I never knew my grandfather. My dad didn't really know his dad that much at all. I think he died when my dad was 6. And so I came from kind of some blue collar blood as well. But my dad really felt a call to become a minister. And so he met my mom at a Christian Bible college, and they got married there because they're both, trying to become ministers. And so, so as a kid, man, I just grew up in a pretty loving home, and me and my brother were encouraged to be creative. My brother's a drummer. My brother is a dramatist, a very, very talented actor. And I was more of a musician and played piano and sang. And the one thing I like to dote on in these interviews is I'm proud that I grew up in the church, because I got my 10,000 hours of practice and reps in as an artist inside the church. And I was nurtured and loved on, and I could make terrible mistakes in front of people and maybe not sing, perfectly in tune. and yet there was a place for me, in the church to grow as a little artist. And 10,000 hours later, I could play, I could understand chords, I could play with pretty much any band, and sing in a lot of different styles. And so I just remember when I was a little kid thinking, and I didn't connect all the dots till much later in life, but I remember when I was a little kid thinking, wow, I was about 8 when I said this. I said, wow, if I could just find something to do with drama and music together, I could really be happy at that job. And I knew, you're going to grow up, you're going to find a job, you're going to have a career. But I just remember having that fleeting thought. But then I, grew up, playing piano. I met my wife pretty young. I was still pretty adrift in college. I switched majors 5 times, and got married. We got married. Kim was 19. I was 22, and we started having kids pretty early. And I was in the middle of trying to still find who I was. I was working at a church at the time. But on my 5th try back at college, I realized I wanted to direct movies, of all things. And so I went back. The church allowed me to take a couple days off through the week as long as I got my work done. And I started going to a liberal arts college and taking some classes. And my 4th kid was on the way, and I realized it was going to be just too much to stay in college. So I'm a college dropout. But I just immediately dropped out of college and started working, tried to find any job that I could in the industry. Anybody that would have me, I would work for free sometimes just to try to break in. It's a real hard business to break into for many, many people, me included. And then on the weekends, I was running around with friends, making short films, working with little actors and little people in the business. And I probably ended up messing around and did 40 or 50 short films. And I would compete in film festivals and just try to get better with every little story that I told. And at some point, some producers saw one of my short films that I competed with in a film festival and invited me to come to Nashville and shoot my first movie. And that was in 2012. It was a movie called Unconditional. And that was my first feature. We did it in Nashville here, in a 30-mile radius of the city. And that was pretty crazy to do an independent movie in a state that you'd never lived in before or didn't know the lay of the land. But it turned out good. And the Erwin brothers, Jon and Andy Erwin, had their first movie come out that same year too. And they had roots in Alabama and in Nashville, and we saw each other's work and had a mutual affinity for each other and mutual respect. And we were all headed in the same direction. So to make a long story short, they invited me to collaborate with them on some of their movies. And I started with them on Woodlawn. I did a lot of stuff with them on that. And I did even more stuff with them on a title called I Can Only Imagine. I've done multiple documentaries with them and different scores and things. And then this last movie, Jesus Revolution, Andy wanted to do a different movie and Jon wanted to do this. Well, they both are used to collaborating with other people. So Jon Erwin, just because of our long partnership and collaboration, invited me to be the co-director on this movie. So I co-directed, did a little bit of writing on the script, and I did all the music for the movie. So, and helped edit a little bit, uncredited. And so, yeah, today, I think it's the best thing I've ever done. I know we were talking before we rolled, but so many people who have lived through the Jesus movement and have personal stories from the Jesus movement have gone out of their way to say, hey, this brought me back. This took me back to this place. And it humbles me because I wasn't there. I was born in 1973. And I remember we were getting ready to do some test screenings in Southern California. And I was really nervous because, like, okay, when we test this in California, there's going to be people who were at ground zero. And I'm going to know after these screenings if we nailed it or not, and it was scary. I mean, you want to get it right. You want everybody to have the feeling of nostalgia and be like, that took me back, so overwhelming positive response from the people who actually walked through that. And it was important for us to be as accurate and as truthful, to the period and what was happening as we could for PG-13 movie, right? Um, so yeah, I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of how it calls people back to love, and it focuses on this brief moment in history where there was this acceptance and love of this crazy group of people that the Christians were shunning at the time. And so yeah, I really really love this movie. I'm so proud of what it says, and it's so kind and so loving. And I'm getting texts and DMs of people who are going to see it multiple times. I got a message last week that someone has seen it 12 times in the theater, and I don't know. I think it's because of how loving it is and how kind and gentle and just the feeling that you get when you see it. Mm-hmm. But I know, like, from your perspective too, it's real. I mean, millions of people walked through this. Millions of people at the time were kind of at the end of it, and there was such a despair, such a hopelessness. A lot of people thought the world was ending, and so there was this loving, sweet alternative, for these kids to come off the street and find a place to belong in this crazy, crazy place, like a square, legalistic, evangelical church. And when the hippies came in, they changed things too, and I think they changed things for the better. And so, but you were right. When we were talking before, we could only, for a movie, we chose to focus on one spot. But the truth of the matter is, with the Jesus movement, it was happening in the Catholic Church. It was happening in Europe. It was happening in Kansas City. It was happening in Chicago. There was all these things happening almost in concert that, it's really hard to explain. But we chose to focus on the Calvary element of it, with Lonnie and Chuck, and, found some great stories there. But yes, to your point, it was happening everywhere. So to hear that your story was rooted in San Diego doesn't surprise me. I mean, I've heard stories from people, completely like up in the north, or, like I said, in Kansas or Oklahoma. There was a hippie coffee house in Nashville, believe it or not. So it was everywhere. A hippie Christian coffee house called Koinonia here, and Michael W. Smith and Amy Grant would go and play their music and listen to other bands and stuff there. Back in the
I just started tearing up. I'm like tearing up as you're talking, because the memories are overwhelming to me, and
yeah.
And I mean, it just rocked me because, I was raised in the Catholic Church, and I was raised in a severely abusive home with a lot of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. So at 18, I left home with $25 and hitchhiked, I lived in Chicago, and then ended up in Phoenix, and then Portland, and hitchhiked, and then ended up in San Diego. And I was so lost, Brent. I mean, I was so lost. And, I left home as an innocent little girl, and my soul was so lost. And so when I got into the hippie era of, the drugs and the alcohol and naked dancing and sleeping around and partying with rock and roll stars, I didn't know, I didn't know anything else. I didn't have any straight friends. I didn't know anyone who worked a normal job. Everyone I knew worked in records or radio or naked dancing or the restaurant industry. And so that night, I shared with you, my roommate, who's now been murdered by her coke dealer, said, "Jill, let's go to this church. This pastor's a recovered heroin addict, and let's go check it out." And so we did what any normal drug addict hippie would do. We snorted cocaine to go to church. And I laugh at that because it's such an oxymoron. Like in your show, you see the hippies walking in, stoned on LSD, stoned on this, but God was calling them. And that's what he did. He called me. And
that's beautiful.
And he brought me home, and he said, "Jill, you're wanted. I love you, and you're wanted. And for everyone watching this, God has a purpose for everyone's life. And we become children of God when we invite him in, but we're all created in his image." And the show you did before, I Can Only Imagine, was the song we sang at my mom's funeral, and my mom was my abuser, and God just delivered me so much, and I was able to forgive her and hold her hand when she died and went to heaven. And when I saw Mercy Me in the movie I Can Only Imagine, it just brought me back to when my mom died, and I sat there in the funeral service just singing, I can only imagine what it's like to be in your presence, God, and be brought back to a state. You know, Brent, and I'm going to stop on this. When my mom was dying, the Lord showed me that Bible verse where it says, we must be like children to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And I just thought that was like our rebirth as being born again. But the Lord showed me, and says, no, Jill, when our parents, our seniors get older, and they live until, like, say, their 70s, 80s, 90s, or 100s, God takes them back into a childlike state. And he showed me when my mom was sick, she had cancer, that she needed to be put in diapers and have sippy cups, and I had to put her around my neck and put her on the porta potty, and she started calling me mommy. And I said, oh, that's what you mean. They must be like children before you bring them into your presence. And I am just so blessed, Brent, that God spoke to you guys to do this movie, and it's kind of a dichotomy, and I'm going to stop here. I went to see that film several years back of Hugh Hefner's life story. And as I watched Hugh Hefner's life story, it was a whole different dichotomy of watching that versus Jesus Revolution, because I used to go to Hugh Hefner's mansion. I was hired to be a Playboy bunny. I watched that movie like I was right in the middle of it, knowing where his dining room was, and his swimming pool, and his so I remember seeing that going, wow, I completely forgot about partying with Hugh Hefner. And then I went to Jesus Revolution, and I went, wow, I completely forgot that I was part of the Jesus Revolution. So it's kind of like God's taken me on these journeys with these movies, and he started reconstructing my life that was forgotten from all the drugs. And so kudos to you filmmakers bringing these movies to light, because I don't think you realize how much it heals us. So thank you.
It means so much to me to hear this from you and just hear your story. It was important for us to get it right, but I really wanted this to be a story about healing and love, and a return back to love, a call back to love. You know, in culture, we find ourselves in a similar time at 1968, where there's just a lot of hate and a lot of rage, and outside the church, but also in. And I don't know, man. I think we just need more kindness and love, and people need to be reminded that God loves them. Like you said, like has a plan, and that you are a part of that plan. And so, yeah, man, I appreciate that. And it's been pretty remarkable to watch this movie. I don't know how much you know about it, but this movie's been trying to be made for about 8 years, and it's fallen apart a couple times. So this is the third time we tried to make it, and we actually did make it and finished it, but it feels like it was meant to be made and come out right at this moment. So I know this has happened in your story, it's happened in mine too, but like you're headed straight at something and the bridge collapses, and then you have to take this really circuitous path, to get around whatever happened to you that feels bad. But by the time you get to your destination, it was more of like a perfect delay, you're meant to get there a little bit later than you had hoped. So I really feel like that's what happened with this movie. I think it was supposed to come out at this exact moment in time, and I think people's hearts cries for healing and love and kindness and acceptance. And man, there's just a lot of hurt and a lot of heartbreak. Like you were hurting when you ran away. There was some stories there were some stories that we couldn't put in the movie that really touched me, but Chuck Smith, very quietly, without any pageantry or letting anybody know what was going on, sometimes the kids needed to come and stay. They needed to get in a commune and stay away from their families because their families were bad news. But then there are other times, kids ran away. They were rebellious, or that, whatever. They just wanted to run off and join the hippies. And in those cases, he would discern that and would just ask the kids, like, hey, you want to get on the phone with your mom and dad? Yeah. And then, there'd be healing. Well, you want to go home? Yeah. And he would quietly put them on a Greyhound and just get them back home to their parents. And like, we didn't have time to cover that in the movie, but like, there was a lot of healing happening. And sometimes the healing needed to happen completely away from the family. Like, don't go back home, just get in this commune. It's all going to be fine. But then other times of healing, it was reconciliation with these parents, because the kid just, there were the kids like you, but then there were also the kids that just wanted to run away and go do something different and be rebellious, and
well, it's funny you say that, because when I was a single mom and when my son was getting ready to go to college, I wanted him to go to a Christian school, Brent. And he goes, no, Mom, I want to go to University of Kansas because I want to party, drink, and do some drugs. And it was like, oh, my God. And it's like kind of like that. It was like sometimes kids, even raised in Christian homes, want to sow their wild oats, and then prayerfully they return back. But yeah. I wanted to ask a quick question. Years ago, actually in Nashville, I went to my very first codependency conference with the who's who in recovery: John Bradshaw, Patrick Carnes, Judy Hollis, and Sharon Wegscheider Cruz. And while I was at that event, they had one topic that has resonated my whole life. This was back in 1984. I went to the conference, and it was Sharon Wegscheider Cruz and Virginia Satir were the founders of recovery and codependency. And they did a topic called Codependency in the Looking Good Family. It looks good, it smells good, but where are the skeletons? So yeah. if you're willing, and if you're not, that's okay. Where were the skeletons in your family? Because Bible's clear that says, in this world we will have trouble. And it says there's 4 generations of sin, and we need to be healed from that. So you mentioned your dad losing his father, which I would envision in some of the 4 generations. There was loss and abandonment and feeling desertion. And then sometimes that manifests in how we raise our own children, even if we're the best of the best parents. So where did you find pain in your childhood?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's complicated. My parents are very private, very stoic people. So I actually don't know. I don't know everything, but you're exactly right. There's no doubt. There's no doubt all that stuff is there. My dad carries so much pain. Every once in a while, I would try to get him to open up about his childhood, and he would just tear up and not talk to me about it. So some stuff went down in his life that I'll probably never know about. Mm-hmm. I'll ask him again when I can, but he doesn't want to talk about. His mom was in and out of marriages. She was clinically depressed. He won't even talk about, like, he was just in and out of different households with different step kids, but just for a minute. Like, he would have brothers and sisters for like 6 months, and then she would eject and go somewhere else. And so he was just getting yanked all around and never knew his family was. The saving grace there, and again, just awesome Jesus moment, but he had an uncle that took an interest in him and basically became like a mentor and a father figure, and would throw a ball with him. And my dad became he used sports to cope. So he really fell into sports, and that was his whole identity. And he was good enough to go to the Olympics, and some stuff fell apart there where he couldn't. But anyway, I definitely think on my family's side, I think there's definitely undiagnosed mental illness. And then I think too, what happens, and this definitely happened to me. So this is my big struggle, and it's why I worked so diligently on I Can Only Imagine. But you can, like you said, that pretense of a great family, I think sometimes you can sweep things under the rug that is bad and repress. And so I think I came from a family that had quite a bit of repression just to keep things smooth, like just keep everything smooth sailing. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to have this conflict um because I don't want to rock the boat. And that's not the right way to live. The right way to live is to, air out your grievances and work through it and try to find some common ground, and also know your boundaries. Like you said, like in codependency, right? Like oftentimes, even in my own marriage, my wife and I figured this out, but like, I love my wife. I love to hang out with her all the time. But if you did a Venn diagram of our relationship, the two circles were like on top of each other, it's like, well, and it was, I mean, it's beautiful in a lot of ways, but in other ways, you don't have your own life. You don't have your own identity. So in the past 10 years or so, we've spent our time like correcting that Venn diagram, where we have this beautiful overlap in the middle. But like, I have my own boundaries. She has her own boundaries. She's a different person. I'm a different person. We don't always do things that make each other completely like happy with our choices. And yet it's important that we found, so that resentment doesn't keep building up, is to have a healthy boundary in your prime relationship. That doesn't mean you guys need to be on top of each other all the time. And that's where the codependency happens. You need to have your own life. And in the middle of that is this beautiful convergence where your lives come together and touch, and there's all this magic in there. So, but yeah, I would say for me, for sure, the bane of my spiritual existence, and it's been a really big struggle. And I feel like it's almost in my biological wiring. But I harbor resentment, big time, grudges, tell the stories about how I was victimized, and, this bad person did this bad thing to me, and now my life got screwed up. I would just live in perpetual blame, and just be mad about it, and started really to become very bitter and resentful, and learned that about myself. And I've spent the last 7 years just working through that with God and shedding all of that dead reptile skin, like to emerge as something new and different. And I can say, man, I didn't think I could change. I don't know if you've ever felt like that in your own life, but I was like, man, I think this is who I am, but I'm going to trust this process with God and start working through this. And I have found a deeper peace, a deeper day-to-day connection with God, and the freedom to let go of all that, or at least be in the process of that. Right. I don't want to overclock it and say everything is perfect, because it's not, but I know I'm on the journey. I'm on this journey, and I can feel my way. I can feel like I'm climbing up this mountain, and I'm about 30% up this mountain that I'm still trying to climb. But that 30% has felt so good. It's changed my life. It's changed my heart. I'm able to show up with so much more generosity and gratitude. I'm actually able to show up more in the image and the essence of Christ to other people's lives. Because, man, when you're holding unforgiveness and harboring grudges, that's antichrist. It really is. So any places, dark places in your heart that you have those things, you Christ and the image of Christ, the essence of Christ can't be in operation there. And so yeah, I've really been learning that about myself, and letting go of this resentment, and learning how to forgive. And so I will tell you, I know where you personally with your story, it's like you walking through your mom passing and the abuse and everything. For me, I was on the opposite side of that. I was the kid in the story who had some bad stuff happen to him, and he couldn't let it go. And so I distinctly remember, I wrote half the movie. I wrote it with Jon. And so I figured out really quickly my theme that I was bringing to it. And Jon and I do this together. It's crazy, but like Jon did a different movie than I did. And but we ended up doing the same movie together. But my movie was a kid who, with God's help, learned to forgive and let go. And, but I remember scoring that movie in my studio, just like all my stuff here. But I remember the moment that he chooses to forgive his dad, and I was playing that, and tears were just falling off my face and literally hitting my keyboard while I was playing, because I could feel God moving in me and like bringing more of an ability to start the process of learning how to forgive, how to let go, how to start giving this resentment and this bitterness to him. And so, yeah, I would say that's been my big struggle. I would say also, as an artist, it's hard to describe, but an artist's wiring is very self-centered, and it can be very destructive. So the art is all consuming. It wants you all the time. And so what that does is the art is constantly calling you back inside your own head, going, oh, what if this, what if you wrote this? What if you did this song? What if you drew this picture? What if you wrote this piece of poetry? And you don't mean to be, but you become this very self-centered person that lives in your own head all the time, because that's where the art is. And so I've also had to learn to be a less self-centered person and show up for other people and live outside of my head, and when you do that, you actually love your life more, because there's so much more beauty outside of your thing that's going on. And
you know what's so cool about what you just said, and I want to just say this and then talk on this, is all of a sudden when you're able to do it, even for moments, have you noticed that you can start seeing people? Like your eyes go, wow, I didn't even know my wife was in the room. Like, oh, I see you, because you're out of your head enough to let the busyness fade. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's other people around. I didn't know they existed. Do you ever have that happen where all of a sudden you can see people?
It's so crazy you're asking that. It's so guided. I had a profound moment in Walmart of all places. I had really gone through like a deep, almost like a cleansing and like letting go. And I remember I was just picking up a couple of things from my wife, my family, and this woman walked by. She was hacked. She was on the phone and she was just spilling the tea, just burning someone down, just angry on the phone. And I'm really empathetic, and usually that would really disturb me. But instead, when she walked by me, like you said, I had this powerful spiritual thing where I saw her and I connected to her, and all I felt was, I didn't hear like the anger and the vitriol and the stuff in her voice. I heard someone who's in pain, and I just felt that as they walked by. And I had that moment with multiple people in Walmart, and I just realized, wow, if I could just live outside of myself, I would feel so much connection to the people around me, even strangers that need your time, need your help. You're going out to Branson to give these homeless women makeovers. Like, that's powerful. If everybody would show up as a light bearer for, if we really believe the love of God is present in us, around us, we would lean on that more, and we would operate in this life more attenuated to that. So yeah, it was really wild. And I was really just in an attitude of prayer for all those people I walked by. I could just tell they're living in their own story. They're living out a lot of pain in their own life. And yeah, when you're thinking about your next movie all the time, you do not see them. You're right. You don't, you're not taking the proper amount of time for your kids, for your wife. And so I've learned to, I love being an artist. It's all I know. I can't be anything else. I know that's what I am. I know that I'm put on the earth to be that. At the same time, I keep those artistic proclivities at bay and only let them come out when I'm ready to work. And the other time I'm being working on myself, right? I'm very proud of you. Like, you got to meet God halfway. We live in a canister of clay. We live in a leaky vessel that leaks water everywhere. And we've got to work on our cracks too. But it's amazing when you show up, how those cracks can be healed by something much bigger than you, but you have to be willing to work on that and take those steps. And so I'm proud of you, man. I've been doing this, similar things in my life. And, but yeah, definitely my struggle has been resentment and unforgiveness, and just seeing a different path and seeing healing happen in my own life when I've yielded to it. Because here's the thing, man, I don't know if this resonates with you or not, but like, there's a power that you hold on to when you resent, because you're holding on to judgment of this other person, and you want something, you want justice, man. And so what I realized was, I had made peace with God. I was like, okay, I'm going to hold on to this thing, because I don't think anything, I don't really know that there's ever going to be justice, and so I realized, I'm not God, like, and like, if the tables were turned on me, and whatever degree I'm held responsible for my actions, where I've hurt people, and I've hurt people in this life, I have. And so it's also been just that journey of realizing, well, it's in scripture, man. It's like, to what effect you're able to forgive, that's the effectuation of the forgiveness that will come back to you. So, man, if you have an unforgiving heart, you're not in a good spot, spiritually. And
well, and in AA, it talks about that you're supposed to write down on your 4-step your resentments, your fears, and your sexual conduct. And so when I did my 4-step years ago, in recovery, I mean, I couldn't believe I had pages and pages of resentments. Unfortunately, I had pages of sexual conduct and fears. And so when you get to that level where you can write it down, and then the next step is you're supposed to go to those people you've injured, except when to do so would injure them or others, and tell them what you've done, and ask, and not even ask for forgiveness, just to say, hey, I did this and I was wrong. It's like you're admitting your wrongs, not saying, will you forgive me? Because it's not up to that. And then not expecting anything in return. And I remember, Brent, when I did this step, and again, my mom was my physical, emotional, and sexual abuser. And so I remember when I did my 4-step, and I sat down with my mom on the patio on an August day, and I said, Mom, I need to sit down and tell you how sorry I am for these things that I did. I'm so sorry when I hitchhiked around the United States. This is when we didn't have cell phones, and I'd call home only once a month, and you had no idea where I was. And one time I left my purse in someone's car, and they sent it back. My mom didn't know if I was dead on the streets. I said, I'm sorry when I was a naked dancer and threw that in your face. I'm sorry when this. So I said all this stuff. It took me like an hour. At the end of it, Brent, was so funny. She looks at me and says, I'm so glad you finally realized what a good mom I was. And I was like, I didn't play into it. It was like because she was the worst mom you could ever imagine. And instead of me then saying to her, no, you are a horrible mom, I said, Mom, this isn't about you. This is about what I've done to you. Like when she used to just scream and swear at me, and then I got angry and would scream and swear back and throw things. I said, I'm so sorry when I swore at you and raged at you. So I said, this is about me. So making amends to those who have injured us is about cleaning up our side of the street. Yeah. It's never about that other person saying, I forgive you, or whatever, or getting them off the hook. It's you got to clean up your side of the street. That's all you're responsible for, and leave the rest to God.
Yes. That's so deep. It's so profound. And, I don't know where things ended up with your mom, but you have to do that in spite of someone else never like elevating to where you're trying to go to. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not your responsibility. It's not your problem. And people who aren't trying to elevate, they're everywhere. They're in abundance on the earth. But for those of us that are trying, at least, you're right. All you can be responsible for is you. And that has been a remarkable journey for me. And at some point you do have to look into self. So I think, like the AA journey, I'm very, very, very supportive of that. My spiritual mentor in life had a really hard life, similar to you. Did AA 30 years ago. He's been sober, and he's walked a deeper valley than I have, and yet, and just carries so much peace in his heart. And I love being around this guy, and he leads me, and will call me out when I'm being a punk about stuff. I need that, so he's just a wonderful human. But, AA has been a really valuable part of his healing. And
Well, let's
He's really strong.
let's flash to your bio because I want people to know how to find you. So Brent McCorkle has a website, brentmccorkle.com. There's a LinkedIn link here that you can find him. His whole bio's here. And so he's an amazing man of God, I feel. And Brent, I could talk to you for 5 more days. I could, but I'm going to end here. But it does not mean our journey is ending together as brothers and sisters in Christ. I believe that we were put together for a purpose. And so we're going to continue connecting, staying connected on the Connection Show. And should another film come out, I want you to call me at any time and I'll get you on my show because I believe what you guys are doing is a ministry. I don't believe, sure, we need money, guys and gals, to pay our bills, take care of our family. But when we do ministry, it's giving God the glory first. So, Brent, I love you with all my heart. I come to Nashville to see my grandkids. I was just at my oldest granddaughter just got married in Chattanooga a couple weeks ago.
Awesome.
So I will definitely look you up, maybe do lunch or dinner with you and the wife when we come back to the Nashville area. And I love you. That's all I can say. I love you with all my heart.
I love you too. Isn't it beautiful to find love? When you get centered, you can find love for another human really fast. But yes, I feel that too, and definitely would love to have some coffee with you when you come through. So just hit us up. That would be amazing. I would love that so much.
Well, thanks.
You have to come pet my goats.
Okay, that's good. You guys, thanks for joining the Connection Show. And if you haven't yet been to see Jesus Revolution, make it an important date on your calendar. And when it comes on TV, Netflix, Paramount Pictures, PureFlix, watch this movie, support this ministry, because by doing that, these films can continue to be made and we can have good entertainment for our children to fill their minds with whatever's pure, whatever's right, whatever is, let your mind dwell on these things and not all the other junk out there. So God bless your ministry. Thank you for making this film, and thank you for coming on the Connection Show, Brent.
Thank you, Jill. It's been great to be on. Thanks again.
All right. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you. Amari Global is the mental wellness company. In 2018, Amari won the Nutra Award for the world's first award-winning gut-brain axis nutrition system for their flagship product, the Fundamentals Pack, clinically proven to increase good bacteria in the gut and incredible benefits. Amari means love, and there is love in every bottle. Mental health matters, and Amari is the mental wellness company. Prepare your body's gut microbiome for optimized mental wellness with a reboot and get yourself back to feeling joyful and motivated with mood. Round out your daily nutrition with GBX food systems. Crush your daily to-do list each day with Edge. Support your digestion and immune system with digestive, probiotics, omega, and Vita GBX supplements. Fuel your mental edge with our Mental Fitness Pack. Feel like your best self with the Happy Hormone Pack. Unlock your brain's potential with happy neurons with the Happy Mind Pack. And combine these products for an ultimate day with the Happy Juice Pack. For weight loss and energy, order the Transformational Pack. Our Kids Pack is the first comprehensive mental wellness pack for kids and teens. For a complete mind and body nutrition system, get your kids these today. Begin your wellness journey with Amari's Starter Pack and save. Start with the Entrepreneur Pack if you're serious about making an impact on your mental, physical, and financial wellness. Launch your Amari business with all our top products, packs, offers, and save. Help others achieve overall wellness too and gain financial wellness. Become a mental wellness partner today. Shop now and save. Sign up today by going to our website listed on this page.
Hydrogen is used by health professionals as a powerful antioxidant and the #1 tool to fight inflammation. Studies show therapeutic potential in cancer, diabetes, digestive, and heart issues, and essentially every organ and system in the body. This is not medical advice, because I'm not your doctor, but if you have any health concerns, I strongly recommend that you learn more about hydrogen. Get educated at holyhydrogen.com and order the best hydrogen generator known to man. Use code BRAVEHEART for $100 off your order. Because hydrogen is the smallest molecule in existence, it can pass through the cell membrane and even the blood-brain barrier to clear out inflammation and free radical damage where other antioxidants just can't get to. Visit holyhydrogen.com to see the latest technology that elevates your immune system and fights inflammation. Search their research library to see if hydrogen has a track record for helping a health concern you're dealing with. Make sure to use code BRAVEHEART for $100 off your order. Remember, holyhydrogen.com.
Thank you for joining us on The Connection Show. Our show is made possible by your support. Please go to our website and click on the Affiliate Partners page now. You can support us either on Venmo or our Cash App today. We love our podcast guests and our social media subscribers. Our channels are made possible by you, our listeners. Please go to our website and go to our Contact Us page and click on all our social media pages. Make sure you click the bell on YouTube and subscribe, and the follow us button on Rumble. Our affiliate partners are featured on our show, and we thank you for supporting them and their products. Each of them have fabulous offerings with discounts when you mention Braveheart when you order. Please order today by going to braveheartworkshops.com and clicking on Affiliate Partners.